Abigail Peters, and I'm here with a special report on Ebola in quarantine. Questions we get is, what is Ebola and what are its symptoms? Ebola was previously known as Ebola hemorrhagic fever. It's a rare and deadly disease, and it's caused by one of the 5 Ebola strains, 4 of which cause disease in humans. The strains are Ebola virus, Sudan virus, Typhus virus, and Bundibugyo virus, and Reston virus. Reston virus only causes disease in non-human primates. It was first discovered in 1976 in the Democratic Republic of Congo around the Ebola River. No one really knows what naturally carries Ebola, but it's commonly thought that the natural hosts are bats. Some common Ebola symptoms are fever, severe headaches, muscle pain, weakness, fatigue, diarrhea, vomiting, stomach pain, unexplained bleeding or bruising. Symptoms may show any time between 2 and 21 days after being exposed to Ebola. People who survive Ebola gain antibodies that will protect them for up to 10 years. Another common question we have is, how does a quarantine work in the U.S.? Most people will voluntarily put themselves in quarantine, but sometimes people are forced to go into quarantine if they have very contagious disease. People who are forced into quarantine are too dangerous to others as they are very contagious and should not be in public to get to a hospital. This isn't common in the United States. To get someone under involuntary quarantine, health officials go to the court to prove the person in question is both very contagious and dangerous, and that they will most likely spread the disease to many others if they stay where they are. If you are quarantined, you are given a hearing, and you would be released once the disease is no more. Quarantine's goal is to confine you and to keep you from interacting with other human beings. So, the big question, how does quarantine relate to Ebola? Governors in many states, along with the governments, have placed a mandatory 21-day quarantine on healthcare workers and officials returning from Africa. They believe that this will help stop the spread of Ebola in the United States by by making sure the healthcare workers do not have it. Many people are against this idea, and they think that we should be honoring the brave people that have put their life on the line for others and not locking them up. This has become a national conflict. Casey Hickok is a nurse that returned from an Ebola-infected country. She has campaigned for healthcare workers and the right not to be quarantined. She has implemented a self-quarantine plan for herself to stay out of public. Those who were on Hickok's side see this as a major battle won. And now, in the words of Hickok herself.
My fellow healthcare workers in West Africa, both national and international staff risking their lives to fight this disease today, my thoughts, prayers, and gratitude to you. It has been a privilege to work with you, and I know that as a global community, we can end Ebola. Thank you very much.
Casey, the state says that your roommate in Sierra Leone has Ebola. Is that true, and what does it mean for you?
This is incorrect information, and I guess it happens sometimes. There's incorrect information, but I don't want to focus on that today. I want to focus on the fact that we have a really good decision that offers human treatment to healthcare workers coming back after working to fight this terrible disease.
Casey, the judge asked that you be sensitive to the fears in the community. What does that mean to you?
You know, I completely understand that, and I am sensitive. This is one of the reasons I'm saying this battle isn't over. We still need to continue this discussion. We still need to continue educating ourselves, and I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I think so far Ted and I have shown a lot of respect to this community. We care about the community. I'm a nurse and a public health worker. I don't want to make people uncomfortable.
How was the
But
pizza?
it was amazing. In fact, I just had another piece this morning. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And happy Halloween.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
An officer who got sick on a flight from West Africa was being monitored in a hospital at Fort Bliss, Texas. It was found out that he was suffering from food poisoning. He has since been released and is back to doing his own thing. This leaves people wondering, are our Ebola precautions a bit excessive? It's time for a poll. More than 7 in 10 Americans say that they support mandatory quarantine for health care workers returning from Ebola-infected countries. The conflict. It began with governors deciding to put mandatory 21-day quarantine on healthcare workers coming back to the United States from Ebola-infected countries. Some people are against this idea, while many are for it. Hickox was was against the idea that she would be quarantined. She fought against this policy and eventually formed an agreement that she would stay out of public. This was a big thing for the people who were against quarantining. Most people are afraid of Ebola, and this is why they are all for this huge quarantine. This is the conflict. We took a video of me interviewing a group of humanitarian aides that supply medicine and money to the Ebola effort. So you guys help with the humanitarian aid group?
Yes, I love it. Though we don't get to go to Africa, we just ship the supplies out there.
I just wish we could do more, but I really don't want to get sick.
How do you get the supplies and the funds?
We do fundraisers and we go to stores to ask for help.
We sell cookies, muffins, and cakes.
What about the medicine?
Doctors here in the U.S. donate to the cause.
How do you get your donations from here to Africa?
We ship it there on a small airplane we own. This is Abigail Peters, reporting live.
Welcome back. Check out this interview. Hi, I'm Abigail Peters from Wolf 6 News, and I was wondering whether you would answer some of my questions.
Sure, I'd love to answer some questions.
So, what are your feelings on the mandatory quarantine for all healthcare workers coming back from Africa and Ebola-infected countries?
You know, it's a good question you ask. I actually think that the quarantine is very important. I think that for a lot of people who are coming back from these countries, they're people who've gone over to help, and they've been exposed to a very contagious disease. I think that people don't need to become so obsessed with it, but I think that their willingness to go into quarantine is very appropriate, because that way they can be tested for whether or not they have the virus, and then if they don't have the virus, then the quarantines are lifted. I don't see that there's any kind of a problem with it, and I think that having it as a mandatory thing is what keeps it from spreading.
Why do you think that quarantine is important? Besides, how do you think we should, if they didn't do a quarantine, what do you think we should do?
Sure. I think the real concern, the chances of actually catching Ebola, especially here in the United States, is very low. They have to come in, people have to come in contact with bodily fluids. They need to actually, their immune systems themselves have to be able to allow the virus to take over. And even if it does, we have amazing hospitals and we have amazing treatment that we have here in the United States that they don't necessarily have in Africa. I believe that with the healthcare that we have, it's not as much of a concern, and they tell you that all you really need to do is to do what you would do in cases where you're like there's a big flu outbreak or a cold outbreak, and you just keep washing your hands, and you cough, you know, in your sleeve and your elbow so that you don't spread it, because it's the bodily fluids that cause the spread of Ebola.
What about, what would you say to the people that are kind of afraid that Ebola is going to come into the just suburban area like we are now?
Sure. I think I would tell them not to worry about it at all. I think that, again, we have a very different environment than they have in West Africa, what they're dealing with, like in Sierra Leone. Here in the United States, here in Shawnee, Kansas, again, we have running water, we have grocery stores, and so if you are under quarantine, it's very easy to stay indoors. You don't have to go and get fresh water to drink. You don't have to go and find food to feed your family. We have that here, and it's readily available. We also, if you do get sick, have amazing health care, and they don't always have access to that. And we have, again, with the quarantine in place and with different procedures in place, the chances of it actually spreading is very, very low. And I think the more you know about it and the more educated you get about Ebola, the less chances are that you're actually going to catch it. There's a greater chance that you could die from diarrhea or malaria or HIV than Ebola.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Abigail Peters reporting live.
Welcome back. Check out this interview.
Hi.
Hello.
I just want to ask you a few questions on the Ebola quarantine.
Okay.
Are you in favor of this mass quarantine?
Oh, probably not a mass quarantine. Well, are you talking about in the United States?
Yeah. Like when the healthcare workers and like doctors and nurses come back from Ebola infected countries, how they have a mandatory 21-day quarantine.
Well, gosh, I don't think I'm in favor of any kind of blanket program or behavior or policy. I think, especially in these cases, it's a big country that these people are coming from. It's like having, if we had an illness in the United States and then every single person from the United States who was helping out here went back to their home country. It doesn't seem like it would be fair for them all to be quarantined. I think that's the same is appropriate here as well. Especially with Ebola. Ebola in this country, I don't think it has the same, there's not the same fear because, just the practices in general in this country would prevent, I believe, the kind of outbreak that we're seeing in North Africa. So, I think that we just need to use some good judgment. I think we need to apply quarantines when the situation justifies it. I think most people that are healthcare workers over there understand the gravity of the situation enough to use relatively good judgment when it comes to coming back to the United States. So I think so no, I'm not really in favor of the quarantine policy.
And how do you think we should fix this quarantine policy? Like, do you think it's wise if we kept it? Like, what are your thoughts on it? Like, how should we stop it?
Well, I do think that there's, perhaps maybe an interview process or something where you have to discuss who you've been around, people that have been affected, that you've been helping, to determine what the risk factors are, and then I think a decision should be made on what an appropriate level of isolation is based on the risk factors that are involved.
Have you heard of Kissy Higgins?
I have.
I think that she also is kind of in favor of what you just said, how they she has implemented a self isolation quarantine plan. Do you think that would be wise if they did that, or do you think it should go how do you think quarantining should work?
Well, I think in her case, she's responsible. She's gone over there to help. She understands what's going on, and she understands the risks. And so, she's willing to do these things voluntarily. I think it's possible that someone could come over that's not that responsible. In that case, they may be forced to endure some kind of isolation. But once again, I think that that should all depend on the situation, and I think that there needs to be some sort of a vetting or interview process that takes place to allow these decisions to be made. I don't think it's reasonable to have a blanket quarantine if someone is coming out of a certain country that's got Ebola.
Thank you. This is Abigail Peters reporting live. Welcome back, and these are my thoughts on the subject. I'm on the side that sees many of these precautions unnecessary. This is because of how people like Casey Hickox, who test negative for the virus and show no symptoms, should not be locked up. It is inhumane. I do believe, however, that everyone coming from Ebola-infected countries should be tested for Ebola. They should keep out of public until results come back or they are showing symptoms. Then decisions should be made. That's your story, and thank you for watching. Have a great evening. Bye.